Hi, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. If you are new to my channel, I have studied philosophy, psychology, sociology for 30 years, and I am creator of the Radical Global Healing Plan for World Peace. This video, we are talking about fears. These are real primary fears that a lot of us deal with on a daily basis, and I'm going to be covering them and also providing you with a tool and some basic information on how to handle them. Fear of the unknown is one of the core fears that we have. Literally, we are terrified of ignorance and uneducation. That's all it is. The cure to fear of the unknown is education. So if there is something that you are afraid of, the best thing you can do is learn more about it so you eliminate the fear. Prejudice is fear of the unknown. Prejudice is just fear of the unknown. So if you are prejudiced, it's because you are so afraid that you have developed hatred. Hatred is actually related to fear. It is like an uber level of fear. A lot of people like to connect love and hate. No, absolutely unrelated. Hate is basically fear on steroids. That's it. Hate is fear on steroids. And I will be going over emotions, like that's a whole thing that I do. Hate is fear on steroids. Prejudice is just a fear of the unknown. And because it's hate on steroids, but you're just afraid of the unknown. Education is the cure to that. Daryl Davis is a phenomenal living example of this. He's extraordinary. And all of his work proves this. Fear of change is related to fear of the unknown, because change implies that there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of unfamiliarity. So there's a lot of resistance to change because of the unknown. My goal with Radical Healing Plan is to eliminate the unknown and to educate, so the fear significantly calms down. The next thing is fear of isolation. And for every introvert and hermit out there, now is not the time. That's something different. Fear of isolation is the concept that safety in numbers. And this is where our abandonment and rejection is linked to 100%. All cases, every time. Fear of abandonment and fear of rejection is actually a fear of isolation because there is safety in numbers. This is the oldest fear. This is fear number one. Many of us were taught to choose between self-love and community. What we were really being forced to choose between was self-love and survival. Because you don't survive if you don't have a community. You don't survive if you don't have numbers. Safety in numbers is the core to survival. It is very old. So when we have a fear of abandonment or a fear of rejection, we are really talking about safety in numbers. And that is really down to that core of fear of isolation. Now, you can be introverts, hermits. Now I'm talking to you. You can be so traumatized by community and people that you avert and avoid to an extreme. When that happens, you are actually at a conflict because you have this severe, deep fear of isolation and needing community and safety in numbers, but you feel you have to be isolated because you're hurt if you don't. The reason why is because you most likely overtrust and overgive, and you're not using boundaries because you were never taught to. As a result, You overtrust, you overgive, and you probably see the good in everybody way too soon. You want to hope and you want to connect. So when there is a chance that you can finally connect, you go the other extreme and you jump all in and you invest 100%. Unfortunately, it is the investing 100% that causes you to get hurt over and over again, which then reinforces the lesson that you shouldn't trust anyone and that people hurt you, so you go back to hermitage. So you literally bounce most of your life between hermitage and over engorgement and over trusting by giving 100% when you should be giving 5%. And then you go back over to the hermitage because you've been hurt. And then you go back to giving 100%. You need to give 5%, just 5%, and then evaluate their behavior and watch what they do with it and determine if they are somebody you can trust. And if they don't, weed them out. Boundaries is your communication system, and it is something that allows you to step into people's positions so that you can more and more protect yourself and allow yourself a safety net so that the wrong people cannot gain access to you. So that is what's going on in that specific situation. But bottom line, fear of isolation, fear of the unknown, and fear of change. These are our common basic fears. Now, we have a few other ones that we've learned. We have learned fear of love. We have learned the fear of self, fear of growth, and this next one's a doozy, fear of talking. Those four fears are most what is behind every mental illness. The fear of love, fear of self, fear of growth, and fear of talking. Fear of growth leads to abandonment. What did I say? Fear of isolation. Fear of talking leads to pain and also abandonment. Fear of self, abandonment. Fear of love, pain, and then abandonment. Fear of growth is also fear of the unknown. So there is a lot of people who associates abandonment and the unknown with the self, love, growth, and talking. Because we are so stunted in our talking, we don't know this, but this is going to be a massive reality check because I just got done talking about language. We're going to get into this. Talking is equivalent to walking. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being toddling and cruising, if you do not have children. Cruising is what toddlers do when they're standing upright on their bipeds and they're holding on to things while they shift. That's cruising. 10 is running. 3-year-olds are really good at running. Now, talking, on a scale of 1 to 10, talking is the babble. That's when you hear dink when a child tries to say drink. So we're going to call that babble. 10 is where I am. That is the succinct articulation to condense a grand statement in 5 words or less. We are at a 4. As a societal whole, people are at a 4, not a 10. We're supposed to be where I am. We are all supposed to be speaking on the level of where I am. That is how greatly our language has been stunted. It should not take us. Yeah. You'll see. You'll see. You will see. This gets corrected at the 7th, 8th, and 9th perspective. That's when our language fixes itself. And we have to clock X amount of words in our lifetime in order to achieve it. Doesn't matter when, you have to clock X amount of words. I am a very firm believer that we should be at this level at 8 years old. But we're not getting there until we're 65 years old. Maybe. I met one person who could speak as articulately as I, and she was 65, and she just arrived there. It was like a year ago. And she explained her journey of language development without realizing that that's what she had gone through. And she depicted it to me and explained how something happened about a year ago where she suddenly just couldn't stop talking. That's the 8th perspective. The 7th perspective, you go silent and you don't want to talk ever. The 8th perspective, you can't shut up. My YouTube channel, like take a look at my 8th perspective, that's case in point. 9th perspective is integrating silence, and it's listening and talking. So the 7th perspective teaches you how to listen, and the 8th perspective teaches you how to talk. So that when you're at the 9th perspective, you learn how to integrate and balance listening with talking so that you can have a conversation. But like I said, a lot of us aren't there. I would easily say that where we are in our language skills is 4 years old. That is how our language right now as a whole for a society is equivalent in some cases to a 3-year-old, but 3 or 4 years old. It's sad. So this is something that once your mental health is corrected, because that just means that you got the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd perspective. That's it. And then 4th, 5th, and 6th perspective is when you cultivate and you learn how to be part of community. And then 7, 8, 9 is about communication. And then 10, 11, 12 is metaphysics. That's when you get to play with physics. That's emotion and then logical. And that's when you integrate emotions and logic. So that covers up fears for the most part. So fear of love, self-growth, talking, all of those are linked to fear of abandonment and or fear of pain. Oh, there's also fear of discomfort. This is another one we are taught is fear of discomfort. If you struggle with addiction, self-harm, and or eating disorders, you probably have a severe fear of discomfort, which is why you have all of those behaviors that are literally designed to avoid discomfort. So, fear of discomfort is a very big deal. And it's basically you were prevented at 1 and 2 years old, maybe 3 and 4 years old. You were prevented from experiencing any kind of discomfort, so much so that you're terrified of it because fear of the unknown. And fear of discomfort goes back to fear of the unknown. So you have fear of the unknown and fear of isolation. Those are your 2 primary core fears. From those 2 core fears, it branches off into fear of discomfort, fear of change, fear of love, self-growth, and talking. And all of these fears can keep going back to fear of the unknown or fear of isolation. And the fear of the unknown and fear of isolation are core fears. Absolutely core fears. If you are somebody who is poofing out your chest and announcing, I'm not afraid of being alone, because you have been conditioned to associate people with pain, and it is an abnormal behavior to desire that much isolation. Now, pretty much covers everything as far as fear goes. As far as how to handle fear. Fear is not an emotion you can bully yourself through. A lot of people bully themselves through fear. They either paralyze or they slander themselves, they abuse themselves. The only way to manage fear is by becoming your own mother and providing nurturing comfort nurturing mother for yourself. You're going to have to learn how to mother yourself. And to do that, you need first and foremost self-empathy. That is the key emotion. All the other ones are secondary to this one. And it's the one that is most abandoned, neglected, forgotten, not used. Self-empathy. It is showing the self that you understand it, you experience it also, and you are not alone. Self-empathy. The next one is self-validation. A lot of people require this self-validation, but they project that validation onto others, expecting others to validate for them. You know who you are. The next one is self-reassurance. And finally, self-soothing. It's going to be okay. A lot of people, specifically people who struggle with the first ethic, project this onto others and make them an emotional prosthetic. An emotional prosthetic is when you use a human person for your emotional crutch instead of doing the work yourself. You can also use pets, service pets, emotional support pets are an emotional prosthetic because you are literally putting your emotional needs on someone else instead of actually taking care of the problem. The problem is you need to become your own mother and nurture yourself. You most likely have a problem with self-love and self-worth. You are basically in a love and value paradigm. Self-love and self-value paradigm that is leading to your addiction, your self-mutilation, self-harm, and or your eating disorder. That is your also your hermitage, severe isolation, and also avoidant behavior. All avoidant behavior falls under this category. So if you are an avoidant, this is why. If you have a fear of abandonment, this is why. If you have avoidant attachment style, this is why. I can like write down lists. Like the first perspective is my favorite. Absolutely my favorite perspective. Like, well, so is the 6%. I love them all. I love them all. There is so much that's just so understanding. And in fact, a lot of this between all of the fear, everything, this is all at the core of the first perspective. So it's very much nurture yourself through self-empathy, self-validation, self-reassurance, self-soothing. I'm going to be providing a lot of information, a lot of classes on this. The first perspective is the very first thing that we focus on. And it's basically going to be January. All of January is literally the first perspective. That's all we cover in January is the first perspective. And it's really getting into each aspect of the first perspective, nurturing it and going through it and pushing it through. It's absolutely, yeah, the first perspective is the core to everything. So self-love and self-value, those are the two big cores. And then managing your fear properly and becoming your own mother. If you are a parent, this is what you should be teaching your children. This is it right here. Now, there's also a problem with the way we think about love. We think you can't have too much love. And we think things like, no, my subconscious mind says, no, we're not doing this right now. So, okay, you got to listen to the subconscious mind. Okay. Apparently, we are going to be talking about that in another video instead of this one. All right. Thank you so much. Link for finding everything about me and regarding this program is down below. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.